They've been pissing us off for 10 years. It's time to turn the thing around. And they need to be held accountable for what they've done. I think we all know that this war, especially if there are ever any ground troops, will not be fought by either of Donald Trump's oldest sons, Beavis or Butthead, nor his youngest son, Barron. And with that, I'll say good afternoon, and once again, may the Lord of your choice take a liking to you. I believe that after the success, if you want to call it that, in Venezuela, and having been able to come out, and within 48 hours depose the head of Venezuela, Trump thought it would be just as easy to do the same thing in Iran. Now, whatever reservations he may have had were dissipated by Bibi Netanyahu on February 11th of this year. On that day, the Prime Minister of Israel, along with an entourage including the head of Mossad, which is the essentially the equivalent of the CIA in Israel, laid out a plan according to which if Iran were hit by joint forces of Israel and the United States, the government would be decapitated. A new government by the same regime, by the same mullahs, would be made impossible by an uprising of the population, upon whose support would be brought in the son of the Shah of Iran, the same Shah of Iran who was essentially the dictator of Iran between 1953, I think it was, and who was then deposed by the current revolutionary government in 1979. And it was presented to President Trump by the Israeli authorities that once they'd done that, the military of Iran would be so weakened that attacks on our allies in the Gulf and on our bases located in our allied nations in the Gulf would be impossible. So they would be safe. And when advised by one of our aides that the Strait of Hormuz was still sitting there and could be closed, he was assured that the Iranians would be so weakened that they would not be able to close the Strait of Hormuz. We could easily keep it open. We could keep it open. The Iranians wouldn't be strong enough to close it. And so that's how we got there. That's how we got into the war. And in fact, as we all know by now, the old regime is the same as the new. The new regime is the same as the old regime. It's only younger. That's the only difference. So probably more hard line. The population has not risen up. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, and anywhere between 13 to 17 of our bases have been hit in various allied countries along the Gulf, including Saudi Arabia. So the whole thing has just been a disaster. If you've bought gas lately, you know that. Although, on that subject just briefly, watch diesel. Diesel is more important than gas. We all think about gas as the first thing on our mind because we all use it, almost all of us. But diesel, watch diesel as it gets up close to $6 a gallon. Everything you buy, whether it's clothes, food, farm equipment, fertilizer, cars, doesn't matter. Everything is shipped using diesel. So diesel is the big thing. It's going to take, if the war ended tomorrow, we're already in the hole as far as our supply chain, according to Mr. Global. Our supply chain is hundreds of millions of barrels short. If the Strait were to open tomorrow, it would take weeks for the oil that's bottled up there to make it out to the refineries in the rest of the world. So we're stuck with this for the foreseeable future. And I don't know what it's going to mean for the rest of us and here on out, but it doesn't look like it's going to be good. I think we all know that this war, especially if there are ever any ground troops, will not be fought by either of Donald Trump's oldest sons, Beavis or Butthead, nor his youngest son, Barron. They're not going to have to don a uniform. We know that. That's bad enough. But how would it make you feel if you knew that the Trump family, through the two oldest boys, are actually enriching themselves by their own war? Don Jr. and Eric have both invested heavily in drone building investments, drone building companies. And these are companies that already have either loans or contracts with the Pentagon, and they're currently in the process of pursuing contracts with the various Gulf states. So, to say it another way, they're trying to sell drones to the Gulf states who need them for protection from Iranian drones because of a war that their father started. So let's put this another way. Donald Trump's war, the longer it goes, the more money his children stand to make. It's as simple as that. Now, it's unethical, it's a conflict of interest. You and I can see that. Anybody can see that. But the Trumps can't, because there's never been a line that family won't cross. The ethics is not in their DNA. It's not only unethical, it's immoral, and it ought to make every one of you want to throw something through a wall. It does me. Because I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of corruption in politics. I've seen a lot of shady deals. I've never seen anything like this, and we're so used to it by now from the Trumps. It's a whole hum deal. You've been hearing a lot these days of the 25th Amendment. And why can't we invoke the 25th Amendment? Or is it time to invoke the 25th Amendment? That the calls for the use of the 25th Amendment especially grew loud with with Trump's tweet on Easter Sunday. The profane tweet that he had on Easter Sunday, followed up by the tweet later in the following days regarding the destruction of an entire 7,000-year-old civilization. So first, it might be helpful to review just exactly what the 25th Amendment is and where it came from. Many people think it came from the 60s and the Kennedy assassination. That's not the case. It started with Eisenhower. Eisenhower had a severe heart attack while he was in office, and he knew what it was like, or what it would be like, to go under the knife and be incapacitated for a significant period of time. And there was nothing in the Constitution that covered that scenario. So this was the answer to that issue. And so here it is, right out of the Constitution. As you can see, 25th Amendment has 4 sections. Now, the first 3 sections are not really appropriate for the current situation. Section 4 is where it gets interesting and where it might work, or it could work in our situation. And Section 4 provides that whenever the Vice President and a majority of the Cabinet transmit to the Senate Majority Leader and to the Speaker of the House a written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, then the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office of Acting President. That's different from what we have in case of an assassination, for example, where the Vice President is sworn in as President. He's an Acting President, and that is because we're assuming that whatever is afflicting the President at the time is temporary, and that he will be able on the other side to resume his duties. So thereafter, when this directive is transmitted to the Congress, then he shall, and there's a written declaration that no inability exists. As I said, the President can then resume the powers and duties of his office. Okay, so that's pretty much the gist of it. There's more, but that's the working parts. Now, could it work? Yeah, it could work. Will it work? No. And the reason it won't work this time is because, unlike his first term in office, Trump has surrounded himself, with a cabinet full of yes men. If you've ever seen any of the news clips from a cabinet meeting where they each just go on and on and on about what a great job he's doing, like something out of North Korea, there is no way that I can imagine that a majority of that group would, including the Vice President, would say, Bud, maybe it's time to go. We're going to have to let the Congress know because you're out of it. You're bonkers. Or as Heather Cox Richardson likes to say, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. She often refers to the President that way. Not inaccurately, in my opinion. Anyhow, will it work right now? No, because the deck has been stacked. The deck was stacked when the President was not alone on this, because department heads have to be approved by the Senate. So the Republicans in the Senate are just as blameworthy for all this as the President himself. So I hope that helps you understand where we sit with the 25th Amendment. It's not really a viable option. It ought to be, but it's not. Okay, I've been asked about whether or not folks might be going to jail after this. certainly there's some people who should be going to jail after this. I think I mentioned Pam Bondi last time I was with you folks, or here a while back. And she's not the only one. Everybody I named that was in a conspiracy with her is ripe. The big question, the two big questions. Number one, will we have a Democratic administration starting in 2029? If we do, then we have some potential. The next question is, have the Democrats learned from the Merrick Garland timidity that we had to deal with in 2022? If you remember right, the only investigation going on early in the Biden administration, and I believe this is because Biden and Merrick Garland were both keenly aware of what it might look like if they go straight to trying to prosecute people. It would look like they're politicizing the Department of Justice, which nobody wants to do. That's banana republic stuff, where one side comes in and they shoot the losers, and back and forth. And we don't want that in our country. However, if you have a lawless administration, which we did in the first Trump administration, what happened was all the January 6th stuff was fleshed out by the January 6th committee before it was ever turned over to DOJ and they started doing anything about it. It was 2022, almost 2 years into the administration, before they executed the arrest warrant or search warrant on Mar-a-Lago to find all the classified documents. Bottom line is, they took too long to get started in the prosecution process. Therefore, time ran out on them, and nothing happened. So, what we need in 2029, this is going to sound a little bit over the top, but it's not. I've heard this elsewhere. What I want to see in 2029 are Nuremberg-style trials where everybody who can possibly be investigated is investigated and indicted and brought to trial as soon as possible, so that we can show the world, and the history books will show that the whole Trump experience was an aberration that flouted every norm that this country has been known for, that this country's been great for. And because of that, they paid for it in the end. So that's what I would like to see. Is that going to happen? I don't know. But I think we need to make clear to whoever is running for president in 2029 on the Democratic side, that's what we want to see. That's what we expect to see. We don't expect to see some pussyfooting around trying not to make the other side mad, because they've been pissing us off for 10 years. It's time to turn the thing around, and they need to be held accountable for what they've done. They've ruined our alliances abroad, which have been built up over 80 years. This can't go unpunished. It can't go without some attention being paid to it. We can't just let it go this time like we did last time. And last time we drew the most horrible judge in the world, a Trump-appointed judge in Florida, who dragged her feet and made sure that case went as slowly as possible. This is a classified files case, which is probably the best case they had against him, until finally time ran out. And so it's going to take an aggressive approach, unlike what we did under the Biden years. So yes, they could go to jail, they could be prosecuted, but our Democratic heroes are going to have to show some gumption and some will. And that's about all I can tell you, because you're asking me to tell the future. They can be, but whether they will be, well, drink to whoever pulls that off. Things are shifting in ways that people would never have imagined. Earlier this year, there was a special state senate election in the northwest part of Tarrant County, Texas. Tarrant County, Texas is the home of Fort Worth. Tarrant County, Texas is the largest population red county in the country. In that election, in a district that went for Trump by in excess of 20 points, a Democrat won a seat in the state senate. So there was a huge flip from red to blue in terms of percentage of the votes. We're seeing that all over the country. Another example is in Florida. There was a special election, or there was an election for the state house in the district that is in the area of Mar-a-Lago. It actually contains Mar-a-Lago. This is Donald Trump's home district. That was won by a Democrat. It hadn't been won by a Democrat in 30 years. This year, just about a week or two ago, it flipped to a Democrat. So one of the reasons that Trump is able to get away with everything he's getting away with is because, as most of you know, we have three branches of government, and the whole idea is one of checks and balances. Well, that doesn't work if one or more of these branches just abdicate their authority here. And that's what's happened with Congress. Congress is dominated by Republicans in both houses. Donald Trump could be impeached. He could be impeached tomorrow. And after the November election, and after people are sworn in on January 1st of 2027, he more than likely will be impeached by the end of the year. That doesn't get rid of him. Ties him up for a while because he's busy with it. But he's not going to be removed unless you have a 2/3 vote in the Senate. The Senate is probably going to be fairly closely divided, regardless of who has the majority. Right now it's Republicans. Later it could be the Democrats, but they're not going to have a 2/3. So it's going to take some Republicans with some spine who stand up on their hind legs and tell the president, this is enough, you've had it, we've had it, you're out of there. So that exists. That's there. It's there for a reason. But it won't work unless we have people who are representing the people of this country in good faith and putting country over party. So far that hasn't been happening. When it does happen, then we might have some good results. But the thing to think about, the people who are there are the people we send there. So wherever you live, you're going to have a congressional election. Congressmen and women serve 2-year terms. They come up for re-election every 2 years without fail. So even if you live in a district that's had a Republican congressman for 30 years or 40 years or 50 years, some of these solid red places, if you've got a Democratic candidate, work for them. You can do phone banks. You can go down to your Democratic headquarters and volunteer to sign postcards. I've done that. If you're the type that doesn't mind doing block walking, do block walking. There's any number of things. You don't have to give your money. That always helps. But if it's easier for you to give time rather than money, then give time. Put a sign out in your yard if you happen to live in a single-family residence. That doesn't hurt. So that's one thing. The other thing would be if you live in one of the states with a United States Senate race. I happen to live in one of those states, and we don't know yet who's going to be running against on the Republican side in November because it's in a runoff. But whatever you do in November, you get yourself down there and vote, regardless of what we're talking about, vote. And after you have a nice cool drink, you can go to bed knowing that you've done all you could do. Thanks. If ever there was a year, I don't care how old you are, I especially reach out to the young folks, Gen Z out there, and a few of you millennials who might have been slow coming to the party. This is the year to do it. If you were ever going to do it, if you were ever going to save this country, this is the year to do it. Because even if we just take the House, and we take it big enough, then we can get some oversight. There's been people asking me about accountability. One of the reasons we haven't had accountability is that the Republicans are in charge of all the committees. That's how Congress works. When the Democrats control the House, the Speaker, they control who the Speaker is. They elect the Speaker, and the Speaker selects the chair people of each of the committees. And then they fill out their half of the committee with the people that they want to put on that committee. And then the Republicans get the other half. So it's split in numbers, but with having the presiding officer is key, because that would break any tie. Any straight party line vote would be broken by the presiding officer, which would be, in every case, a Democrat, as opposed to the Republicans as it is now. So that's why it's so important to control Congress. Now, if you want to stop Trump, the only way to do it is with Congress. And you've got the power. One vote doesn't count? Bullshit. In 2000, George W. Bush became president because he beat, according to the Supreme Court, he beat Gore in Florida by less than 600 votes. Okay? So, every vote counts. And especially this year, because there's no telling what the Republicans have in store under Trump to try to screw this election up. So we want to make it too big to rig. We want to make the margins too big to rig. Get out there and vote. Get your friends out there to vote. Get them registered. If you haven't registered, don't forget about that part. Get yourself registered. Thanks for joining me, and may the Lord of your choice take a liking to you.